Hello everybody, welcome to the Siemens Vascular C-arm video. The C-arm is kept in OR7. If not in this room, then it's going to be very close nearby, either in the hallway or in this little alcove here between 6 and 7. There's a little door there and there's another door on the other wall. So for starters, we're going to power this thing up. To do that, the brakes are a little different than the OECs you guys are probably used to. Press the silver button, push it forward, and when that turns green, you can move it at will. You can only steer with this thing, so you cannot turn the right side handle like you do on the OECs. I'm going to pull this thing out a little bit. Like the OECs, there's a monitor attached to this C-arm. You have the thin cord that hooks into the wall jack to power the whole thing, and you have the thicker cord that hooks the monitor up to the actual C-arm. Unlike the OEC, however, the order in which you hook up the big cable to the C-arm and then the smaller cord up to the wall does not matter. However, it does matter for the OEC C-arms. So it's kind of an upgrade after all these years. Long overdue. However, just to keep things straight in your mind and avoid any mix-ups in the future, it's never hurt or is it a bad idea to just follow the same protocol to hook up both machines. So, the big power cord hooks up on the right side of the machine into this thingy here. You'll screw this button clockwise. It only screws in one way, so can't mess it up. Voila, that's the finished product. The brakes on the monitor over here is this thingy here. Right now the brake's on as it's fully pressed in. To unlock it, just kick it once with your foot, and then if you want to put it on steer, kick it again. Most of the time we just kick it on the first level where it's flat and you can move it at will. Notice how right now the on and off button over here on the workstation is looking like so. Alright, and I just plugged the machine into the wall jack here, and notice how the on button actually lit up now. So it lit up. We'll click it. The rep says this whole thing takes about a minute to boot, so much faster than the 3 minutes or what feels like 5 minutes for the OECs. This thingy is actually a set of dual monitors that can open up. You got touch screens here, and you got a touch screen here. And you can change the height of the monitors with this button here. And so on and so forth, and this thing spins. So if the doctors need it at another angle, feel free. So the next step is to bring up the work list and pull up a patient, just so everything keeps its sanity intact and all that good stuff. So we're going to hit the work list button. Alright, and just to keep this HIPAA compliant, I'm cutting off like half the screen on the left side. But you get the idea. You do not need to necessarily hit the refresh button. In fact, I don't even think there is a refresh button on here. Your exam list will automatically refresh when you hit that work list button. So after you double click the name, this is what the screen looks like. You obviously will have a real name there, and blah-de-dot. If you ever need to change what body part you're working on or the mode for those of you who are more familiar with the OECs, you can always do that by going back to the preparations tab here on the lower middle left here. And then you can change it to whatever you want. This thing is a vascular C-arm by nature. It handles continuous fluoro really well, but you know, you can pick whatever you want. The only vascular cases I've ever been called to staff were ones where they had to fix extremities, whether it's some sort of traumatic injury or the guy's got a DVT and they need to evacuate it and make sure things flow smoothly afterwards. So for these cases, whatever extremity you're working on, be it, let's say, the left leg of the patient has a blood clot in it, you'll want the C-arm on the left side of the bed. So patient's head will be up there with anesthesia, feet down here, supine every time I've done one of these. So the reasoning why you want to be on the same side as the blood clot is, they're going to access the femoral artery on the opposite side that's blocked, and then they're going to thread the guide wire up the femoral artery, up to the bifurcation of the aorta, and back down this bad leg. And this bad leg is going to be what they're going to be working on. So as you can see, the actual tube of this C-arm is a little more bulkier than your OEC standard issue. So just make sure you raise it up a little bit before you drive in, otherwise you'll shake the whole bed and all that good stuff. Alright, so to raise the C-arm, it's this button here, up and down. The one thing I don't really like about the setup on the picture is when you're looking at it, it looks like the C-arm is pointed back at your face. So not so much of a problem on the up and down button, but on the tilt left and right button, the yellow ones here, is really confusing. However, on the flip side of that, just to kind of give Siemens the credit they deserve, this machine is made to where the surgeon can operate the machine pretty much, and he just needs a tech to slide the base up and down the bed as needed. So if you're looking at it from the surgeon's perspective, it actually makes sense because the C-arm is facing your face. So at this point, we're powered up, we're ready to go. I've already pulled into the bed, and this monitor here on the actual C-arm is what you're going to be staring at most of the day here. So your flip rotate buttons are hidden. If you click that, then you have your standard flip rotate. It is the same as the OEC in that by default the patient on the machine is supine and head that way. And if you ever forget what the default orientation is, here's your friendly sticker to remind you. Alright, and here is your modes, so to speak. You have your regular fluoro, just like your C-arm. Single image, I usually opt for regular fluoro because single image, it shoots off a higher dose per shot. And then you have your subtraction, your roadmap, and I never really understood what DCM is. And then everybody's favorite button is the low dose button. So click it, and you can even put it on high dose, which is equal to high level fluoro on your OECs, otherwise known as eyeball plus. So I just set it to low dose for most of the cases we do here. However, notice, even though I set the fluoro mode to low dose, that does not automatically set the subtraction to low dose. So, because subtraction, it defaults back to medium dose. So just make sure you change both if that's the route you're planning to go. Some of the other buttons down here, metal correction, the rep told us it gives prettier pictures when you have a large portion of the image containing metal rather than actual bone. The pulse rate here, not exactly your frames per second that the doctors are used to, but I find that if you keep it on around, most doctors don't really complain. But it never hurts to start from like 8 pulses per second and then just kind of inch your way down, as long as they don't complain. And don't worry, they'll complain if they don't need to, if they can't see what they need to see. And again, all the factors I just changed with the pulse rate and everything else only applies to the subtraction mode. If you switch back, you're gonna have to change it all over again. Your mag button is here. You have, again, 2 levels of magnification you can go. So a lot of times this is going to be the ultimate setup you end up with and run most of the case in. As you can see, it's really hard to actually see what you're working on. So they built us in a little monitor for ourselves. As you can see, it's kind of scrawny, right? Clap it and voila, your very own personal monitor. And even and then churns, so whichever side of the C-arm you're standing on. Kind of a little changing the profile on the OEC C-arms. These buttons here change the mode. This machine comes with a neat function. It's able to memorize 2 positions of your C-arm. So if you're doing, like, say, a crazy acetabular fracture and they keep making it flip between these 2 obnoxious angles where you have to change both the C and the tilt, if you hit this button and then hit one of the numbers, it stores whatever position, in, out, tilt, and C over and back and all that stuff, even the wag, I think. It stores that exact setup, so the next time you want to go to that position, you just hold down this button, and from whatever position you're at, that machine will default back to the position that you saved it at. And if you need to override, just simply hit this and hit either of the buttons again, even if you already have something saved under number 1. By personal preference, I save 1 as my AP with all the angles at 0, but obviously customize it to your own needs during the case. So you guys might be wondering, where in the world are all the unlock levers on the C-arm? Turns out that these buttons are the so-called levers. Right now they're all locked. They become unlocked if you press it. So right now I just unlocked the C forwards and backwards button. You can either control it with these buttons, or if you don't really want to wait for the response delay, you can hit it and do the old-fashioned way of using your hands. Either one's perfectly fine. Another function I like about the C-arm is the laser button. Gone are the days where you're trying to find a red dot in a puddle of blood. As you can see here, there's actually a line. The axial line is pretty obvious, but the sagittal line not so much, but you get the point. You can have multiple locks unlocked at the same time, so it's literally a free-floating C-arm right now. For these vascular cases, most of the time when you're starting out, you're just going to be using the normal C-arm function, doing fluoro shots for them. They're going to thread a guide wire through the opposite femoral artery up to the bifurcation of the aorta and back down to the leg they're working on. The actual exposure button on the C-arm is on the handle here. It detaches, so you can save yourself some more dose by taking a couple steps back from the action while everybody radiates themselves. And then there's also this button on the front here where the trigger finger rests. Pressing it once saves a single image. Pressing it and holding it for 3 seconds saves the last fluoro run. Granted, they don't press the foot pedal before you gets to save that run. A common position on the leg down towards the knee area that the doctors like to ask for is RAO or LAO. If you're working on the left, it'll be LAO, on the right, LAO. The way I remember is whichever AO it is, it's going to be bringing that body part closer to the image intensifier. So LAO, you're going to see back towards yourself about 30 degrees, RAO, vice versa. So we're just going to shoot off a little test picture here just so I can show you guys some of the finer functions. So notice there is a delay. So to know that you actually saved your picture, you hit the trigger once and keep your eye on that region of the screen there. You see that floppy disk with the big green check mark? That means your image is saved. Now, if we were to do a fluoro loop, alright, now if I hold the trigger down 3 seconds or so, that shows you saved your fluoro loop. If the doctor wants you to pull up an image that you already saved in your archives, you can exit out of your big monitor here, and then overview, and then voila. Here's the view from the actual workstation area, and you got the same buttons on this monitor down here as well as. So you have your saved Cine run here. I accidentally hit the save button one too many times, and that's your saved single dose. You can tell if it's a single image or if a Cine run, because Cine runs have this little icon on the bottom, where single images do not. There's a couple of different ways they voice whenever they want to do a subtraction run. Some of them blatantly tells you word for word, hey, we're going to do a subtraction run. I love it when they do that. You also see them tell the scrub tech to grab contrast or hand them contrast. Or if you've done a couple subtraction runs and you're relieving a coworker in the middle of a case, some of them call subtraction runs TXA. Not really sure what that stands for, but that pretty much means they're going to need you to do a subtraction run. So we'll switch over to the subtraction mode. And now, close this. Instead of shooting off regular fluoro shots with this button will now shoot off subtraction runs. Notice there is a little countdown timer, 3.2 seconds, before the doctors can actually inject from when you first press the exposure button. Oh, there's a little test run. I'm gonna press the button, see it counting down, and see that syringe? Whenever they see that syringe, after they see that syringe, then they can inject the contrast. If they inject it too early, it'll disappear down the leg before they can see it on the image. But all of our vascular surgeons, they're all very skilled. They honestly taught me how to use the OEC vascular functions when I first got here, so don't worry, they'll take good care of you. And they're all super nice people, so no need to stress about it. They all know how to pretty much work the machine. As you might have remembered, this Dr. Vogel guy, he's the, I think, chair of vascular surgery. He pretty much just told us that as long as we have a tech here to move the base of the machine up and down, they can take care of the rest. And I'll show you exactly how they can actually do that in later part of the video. But all subtraction runs save automatically, so no need to worry there. At the end of a run, so right after you do a subtraction run, they're going to need you to find the peak opacified image. You do that by doing this. You hit the peak opacify button, and then you hit play. If I actually had contrast flowing, you'll actually see contrast flowing down the veins. But long story short, if there was actual contrast, this accept peak OP button would actually light up. You can also pause it and then slide it frame by frame if they need to. So on the actual monitors that the doctors see, after you hit the accept peak opacify, the actual peak opacified image will pop up on the right side here by default, while the regular fluoro loop just keeps playing over and over on the left side monitor. Another useful button is analogous to swapping monitors. So if, say, you got an image on the left, you want to swap it to the right, you will hit the hold reference button right here. So say we'll make image 1, which is this image on the right. We'll hit hold reference. Notice how hold reference pops up on the right hand corner there. This way, when we go back to our little Cine run, notice how that image stays there. So kind of useful if they need, say, to compare a before and after pic. If the doctor says they want to see a little more bone in this grayish subtraction mess, then you can hit this button, subtraction native. Right now we're on subtracted only, and there's also the option of native only, which would just show the bones without the blood vessels. If we actually had contrast flowing through, we'll hit subtraction and native, and I think there's a little slide bar down here that'll pop up to where you can adjust how much or little the bone shows up. And you might have to hit the Fluoro reset button once or twice during these cases. I promise you they are actually pretty conscientious about reducing dose. It's just the nature of the beast. And your collimator buttons. We kind of have what's similar to multi-leaf collimators in that the left side of the screen and the right side of the screen are controlled by two different collimators. So you can collimate in from the left side only, the right side only, or both at the same time. So pick and choose what you need. So that pretty much wraps up the bare bone minimum of what you need to know to operate this beast. Some of the finer things now. This thing is equipped with a little touchscreen monitor here that you can clip onto the opposite side of the bed on this little rail here. The doctors can just use it as a touchscreen. It's the exact same screen as this, except clipped over there, so the doctors can do literally everything they need to do by themselves if need be. This thing is also equipped with the foot pedals. The foot pedal. You got your eyeball plus over here. And then they can even toggle the modes with that button on the right there. And then this is the analogous to the trigger finger where they can save single images or Fluoro runs. The fancy monitor I was saying that you can give the doctors on their side of the bed to use as a touch screen plugs into this jack here right next to the power cord. And then for the foot pedal, it plugs into this jack down here. We don't have the machine part for that jack, so don't worry about it. And then obviously at the end of the case, just clean the C-arm, wipe it down, change the bag down here if it's soiled or torn. Make sure you wrap up the cables in some sort of a respectable fashion, but don't wrap it around too tight. Just like the vacuum cleaner cord, it will eventually stretch and break. We do keep the C-arm plugged in, though, even after we turn it off. Just because vascular cases, they shoot a lot of fluoro, takes a lot of juice, so if this thing's been sitting here for a couple days not plugged in, they could run out of batteries halfway, which will be bad. Welcome to the second part of the Siemens Vascular training video, guys. This is going to be a video going more of the advanced functions and some of the nitty-gritty things in detail. As always, if you have any questions about anything, I'm more than happy to answer any questions. All the other super users and any of the more experienced tech will also be happy to answer any questions or concerns you might have. Just ask and we'll make sure to find somebody that knows the answer for you. So as you can see, I hooked up some of the stuff I was talking about at the end of the last video. The little control panel and the foot pad are now hooked into the system. So this is kind of a view from the surgeon's perspective. In the actual case, there will be a snap cover. There'll be like a rubber band around this area, and anything from pretty much here down will be covered in a sterile drape. Some scrub techs are nicer. They drape all up in here as well, so the doctors can grab onto this. But it's actually not recommended for the doctors to grab this and then try to shift the whole base up and down. So, as you can see, this little control panel looks awfully familiar to the one we have in front of us on the other side. And you want to clip it somewhere around the mid-femoral shaft area. So if you imagine there's a human being lying here, the aortic bifurcation will be somewhere around there-ish. Groin will be somewhere around it, and they'll actually have a sterile drape that has a clear plastic part where it'll actually let them be able to poke the buttons. However, if you clip it all the way towards the foot of the bed, the surgeons, or rather the residents helping them, have a bad habit of resting their hands right here where the emergency stop is. They'll press it, and then you'll notice there's some buttons on your end that never work anymore for the rest of the case. Chiefly, the raise up and down button. Unfortunately, you cannot just hit your emergency stop button back there. You have to either tell one of them to, disengage this, or just white knuckle it for the whole case. So, just to tell you guys, I wasn't joking when I said the surgeons can literally do anything that the tech can do except move the base up and down. So, say they want to do like a LAO type of deal, right? Let's see. Back. Oop. So there's that, and then you can also add a little tilt in there. And so on and so forth. And the locks are also up here, and here's even the laser light, so there's that. And then to demonstrate the function, I saved the AP straight up and down as my number 1 position. So just as demonstration, I'm going to hold this down. Voila. The laser is no longer powered by batteries. It's directly powered by that power cord in the wall there, so no need to worry about being frugal with the batteries on that. The laser will stay on for quite a few minutes. I forgot exactly how long they said, but it'll stay on for quite a few minutes, and then if you ever need it again, just hit the laser button again. I would suggest for the actual case to put a plastic trash bag around this foot pedal, unless you want to spend eternity scrubbing off blood from this pedal by the end of the case. And trust me, I know from personal experience, blood washes off a lot harder than dirt. And also make sure after you wrap the bag on that this bar is at least semi-raised, if not completely erect. This allows them to hook the back of their foot onto that thing and move it up and down rather than just kick it. And then as to how this control panel clips on, I don't know how well you guys can see, but there's actually this knob here you can screw on. This part clips onto this bar on the side of the OR bed. Every OR bed has these things. It's what the arm board over there clips onto as well. So just make sure you screw this on tight, and then by the end of the case, unscrew it, and then you'll find a surprisingly similar bar on the side of the workstation, and you'll have the screen of the monitor facing this surface here, so it'll kind of be up and down and upside down. And then you'll screw it onto this bar here. It's a little tricky to get on and off, so please don't force anything. Be patient. Make sure it clips into the groove before you just start screwing things in. This C-arm is wireless, as you can see from the little button here. However, if all else fails, here is your hardline jack. So to show you guys how the collimator on this thing works, this is collimate in, collimate out, and etc, etc. This one just collimates in the left side, that one just collimates in the right side. So we're just going to demonstrate here. For these, you have to push and hold, kind of like the OECs, and if you keep your eyes on the monitor, press it, and there you actually see some lines. So say I collimated out the left side of the screen a little too much, I can do this and just shift one leaf of the collimator. So that's one of the nicer things about this C-arm. So when it's all said and done, you got done with your vascular case, blah-de-dot. Your dose is going to be here, your time is going to be there, but don't worry, you don't have to remember it or write it down if you don't want. We'll go back to this overview button here, and then so say you want to look at image 2 here. Yes, right now on the monitor it's like that. When I select image 2, you can hit this blow up button to make this image large on the left screen. But to actually send everything, you just hit multi-selection and then the select all button. And then I'm pretty sure you can get what you need by sending it to packs by hitting this export to network button here down on the lower right, but I find that it's easier to go with the mouse here. You'll go to down here, export. You click export and this page comes up. Couple of important things is make sure you send your subtracted images. You send them as the subtracted version, not the native version. DICOM SC, this is pretty much your dose page. So make sure you have a tick mark here unless you want to come back and write down the doses later. And then once you're satisfied with all your options, if I actually had any images highlighted, this export button will highlight or light up. And then you can hit export. You can see how close it is to getting done by but yeah, you get the point. There's a patient list, and then you can see exactly the progress of each one. All of here tells you the stuff that's already been sent and the stuff that's about to be sent. Feel free to, get a water break or go do something else. Chances are it's going to take a minute to send the images, especially if they do subtraction runs. So once everything finishes, you can hit close patient. It'll even have a little thingy here. Don't hit the print button because it'll actually print here and there's nothing you can do to stop it. It will actually print every single image, even the subtraction run. So never hit the print button unless you want to kill a tree here. Not really sure if exporting the RAD summary here is analogous to when you did it here and you made sure to check it, but never hurts to have this checked. And then the thing to remember is if you hit the end exam button, you can never pull this specific accession number up again and Fluoro under it. So just make sure they're done with the case, otherwise you're going to have to do some merging stuff on McKesson later on. So after hitting that end exam button, we're back to the home screen of how things looked when we powered everything up. From here on out, we just make sure we tidy up everything, and I'll show you guys the finished product. A quick note here, the exception to the rules of not wrapping the wires tightly in this case is for this one and the foot pedal. That's the only way they actually fit. So better tight than dangling. And I find to get it back onto the little bar down there, it's easiest if you screw this to the counterclockwise direction until this bar is raised to its maximum height before you attempt to hook it onto that bar on the workstation. Sometimes during the case they'll have a slave monitor, or in other words, it's just a monitor on wheels that's hooked up to no machine that we can hijack for our own benefits. Here's the wire to do it with. That hooks into either one of these jacks here, and then it'll hook, the monitor will look something like that, except not attached to the entire machine. And then you'll find some plugins under this panel here to hook the other side of that cord into. Before you hit the off button here, just make sure that the height of this thing is down as far as it goes. When it gets to about 5 centimeters from its lowest point, you'll hear this sound. Just to make sure nobody gets their feet crushed, but if you keep holding down the down button, it will lower. I've been told that the 5-minute Fluoro alarm on here is not very audible. It's definitely not the annoying beep you're used to on the OECs, but you'll definitely know it the first time you hear it. Also, when we're shooting off Fluoro shots, I don't know if you guys remember from the first video, there's not that very audible beep, beep, beep that keeps beeping. Instead, this thing up here lights up, and that's the only way you know if you're shooting off Fluoro. There is no sound, so that part's silent. So, this is just a personal touch of mine. Whenever I finish with the C-arm, I always make sure all the locks and the lengths are back to their equilibrium position. So the boom is back to 0, this tilt is 0, and the C in and out is at 0 there. Just to save your coworkers some headaches when they're on the fly and they need to pull in. So they don't want to be able to pull in and have to move the whole base to boom in and out in a centimeter. Power off, we just hit the off button, and things happen pretty dramatically after that. So this is the C-arm in its parked and stowed position. The big trash bag, that's pretty much what's on here. It's the same one that goes over those gray round trash buckets they have in every OR. So if you ever need a replacement, go find a housekeeper staff or just go steal some bags off their cart. Either way. We do have a couple extras on the workstation here, but if you use the last one, please get some replacements. And then the smaller bags are what's going to go around the foot pedal if need be. I personally also be careful on when you hook up this touch display on their side of the bed, because if you're hooking it up when they're trying to sterilize the limb, there's a pretty good chance you'll get chloroprep dripped all over our nice little touchscreen monitor. So there's not really a good or bad time to do it. Just don't contaminate everything, but yet again, don't clip it on too early either. So this is what I meant by not wrapping the cords on too tight. There's plenty of slack. For this one, we're keeping it plugged in just so they don't run out of juice during any other cases. Thanks for watching. Hope this helps you out for your first C-arm case. And take a deep breath. They're all good people. They'll walk you through it. Just make sure you know how to operate your part, and they'll take care of the rest. If you have any questions, feel free to ask. We're more than happy to help. This is our bleach wipe. It's on every C-arm. It's pretty good for cleaning off blood, better than the purple wipes.